Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Trevor Keyson. I am a super chub, and I come with your choice of fries, house-made potato chips, or side salad. Or you can upgrade to a premium side for $2 more.
Oh,
I recommend Trevor with the upgrade.
Is he? I hear the premium sides are extra delicious.
Well, he comes with, see?
My name is Michael. I am a chaser, and I don't come with any extra sides, but I am the whole damn meal unto itself. So you kind of get everything with me.
My name is Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in Hollywood, and I come with a complimentary wine list from which you can have a fine pairing with me.
Oh,
Goodness.
what is the waiter's recommended choice or the connoisseur?
Well, I'm sweet enough, so you want something dry.
Ooh.
Que interesante.
Now, do I go now? My name is Dan Oliverio. I am a chubby chaser, author, public speaker, and I don't come with anything because I've been told I'm a whole snack.
Has anyone noticed here that both of the chubs come with sides and the chasers do not?
I think that's pretty
Is there something to that?
I think we just kind of come, as is. See what you get.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Big Fat Gay Podcast.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you're going to spend the next hour with us. We've got all sorts of fun stuff to talk about.
Remember restaurants?
Oh, restaurants.
Yeah.
Those were such a lovely thing.
For once again, the listener, sentient cockroaches listening in the future, restaurants were places people went to go have food together.
Socially.
What a quaint idea. What a concept.
I had a lunch meeting today at a restaurant where I ate outside. It was pretty empty. There was like other people at other tables that you could see, but nowhere near you. Not close enough for anyone to overhear what you're saying. So probably safe. But I got to say, sitting at a table with another human being, having food in front of me and realizing I have to take my mask off right now.
That's right.
Mhm.
I was so filled with anxiety and taking that mask down, it felt like I was stripping naked in front of someone for the first time ever. Like I felt so exposed and naked. There's no other word for it. I felt naked without the mask.
Well, Don, when you show another man your lips, it's all over.
The mask is the pants for the face.
Well, I mean, I get lots of compliments on my lips. It's true.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I am excited to talk about some of this pop culture stuff that Trevor
Yes.
sent out. 'Cause
We've got some
I
fun
love
things.
both of these items you sent.
I don't understand them, so you guys can explain it to me.
Well, so the internet.
Oh, Grampy Dan.
So what's happening on the interweb? I don't really understand that.
Well, it's this series of tubes.
Wait, let me turn down my Victrola so I can hear you.
So the first little thing I kind of stumbled across, I don't know, this week on the internet, was there's an artist, Michael Herrera, who I followed for a while. I don't know what capacity he works for Disney. I know he was a storyboard artist on the second Wreck-It Ralph. Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Cool.
But he has been doing a series of fashion studies, character design studies, with the intent of challenging animation to create fat characters that can be, quote, protagonists with cool outfits and personalities that aren't limited to nerd, jock, villain, buffoon, and comic relief tropes. You know, like real people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really like, I mean, just as looking at his animation style or his art style, I really appreciate what he's doing because they all have lots of character. You can kind of get a sense of who they are just by looking at this one image of them. But I also appreciate, I mean, it's like what we talked about last week, and a lot of times we've said this, just wanting to see more representation that isn't, you know, a cliche or a trope. It's really cool to see him doing that, and I hope that it gets a little, he's got, what is he? He's Paper Tiki on Instagram.
Yes.
And he's got a handful of followers, so I'm hoping that picks up steam.
Well, I gotta say, like, it's worth taking a look at these pictures because just imagine what these might be in movies from Disney. Like, none of these look like negative stereotypes. None of them look like they're like aggressively making these characters too heroic or unrealistic. They all look like real people. Mm-hmm. They're actually racially diverse too, without like reaching for that. Mm-hmm. There's one sort of Asian looking character here that has a full beard on his face that I I've never seen that character in a Disney movie. I would love to.
Mhm.
I got to say, when I was confused by you're not allowed to have types; they have to be real people. But so much of animation and comedy works on type. There's a whole thing called Commedia dell'arte, which is only about type. And so I was a little confused. Like, so fat people aren't allowed to be the jock because he was calling for something besides that? Because I've never seen a fat guy as a jock. And so that's what it was puzzling me.
Like the fat jock bully.
The fat jock bully.
Oh,
the jock always has a fat guy that hangs around with him, and he is always he's always dumb and a bully.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So like in the Harry Potter series, the guy, the
Crab
big
and Doyle.
Crab and Doyle, who sort of flank Malfoy.
Goyle.
Yeah, I got to
Is it
say,
Goyle?
looking at these pictures, it's like, wow, these don't look like types. They look like real people,
Mhm.
but they're cartoons and they're fat. I love it.
But they have character to them. Like each of them, like I get a personality from them.
Yeah, they don't seem like just random like exercises. Like that they're capturing someone. Yeah.
Mhm.
But we're not done with Disney and the pop
in
culture.
other
No.
Disney news.
Disney
yeah.
is delivering this week. Maybe they listened to our Disney Princess episode and are like, you know what? Here you go, people.
Here's a little,
those
a
guys
little
are
dollop
right.
of little dollop of fat goodness.
there is a cover of Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious
Well done.
by Netta.
who we talked
which is
about
like
on the
that's-
show recently.
Yeah, that's multiple things.
Yeah.
It's so many things.
so
Yeah.
I'm
And
waiting, Disney, Princess and the Pea.
And I gotta say, I like it.
Because I was afraid to speak when I was just a lad. My brother gave my nose a tweak and told me I was bad. But then one day I learned a word that saved my aching nose. The biggest word I've ever learned, and this is how it goes. Yeah, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. You say it loud enough, you gotta go precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Delightful.
And it's maybe you just said this. It's the official Disney Music channel. Like it is.
Yes.
It is Disney themselves who shared it. Which is
they even
didn't
have a
know
little
that.
branding thing down at the lower right corner saying Disney sings. So it's probably for something for kids.
Okay. See you again. Thanks for explaining.
Well, cool. I wanted to do a mailbag because we haven't done one this season yet. Well, not really. We kind of did a faux.
Yeah, buy more
We did a
stamps.
save
It's
the-
still not working.
But
I'll
we've
play
had
the music for you, Michael.
Oh, thank you. So we had a listener write in, and I think this was a little while ago, so sorry for taking so long to get to this. They asked, what do you look for in an online profile? Is it strictly about the pictures of the person, or do you look for other things too? And that said, just looking for advice on probably how to, I guess, optimize their dating profile. And like, is it just about the photo? I mean, that thumbnail, like scrolling through thumbnails of headshots and stuff. What do you do when somebody actually clicks on your profile?
It's a great question. This is like my business. Like I consult with people on what to put on their dating profile.
So you've come to the right people.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Dan, mostly.
I have a
To get
long
you
and
to
detailed
fix
answer.
mine. Jesus.
I have a long and detailed answer to this, but so I should probably go last or something.
Okay. Well, for me, and this is probably very obvious, but just having and when I say a decent picture, you don't have to go get a professional headshot. I just mean a picture where I can see your face, like there's light on your face, and that you're in the middle of something that you're enjoying, so that there's like a genuine smile or just something to kind of give me a sense of your personality. It doesn't have to encompass everything you are, but just that's what I would look for if I was looking to date somebody, as opposed to like hookups or whatever.
I mean, the picture thing is huge, and I am continually shocked by the pictures people choose to put up of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Like this, like, and like, I wonder, like, okay, they don't care, or like, is this really the best picture? Like this picture that looks like it would be on the news for like, I don't know, someone who
Neighbors
robbed
thought
a
he was
bank or,
very
like,
normal and were
Yeah.
very surprised by his actions.
Well, I think in a lot of cases, there's a lot of people out there with chips on their shoulders, and the picture reflects that. The idea of like, I dare you to click on me. I dare you.
I make
have a really-
assumptions about you based on your picture.
Absolutely.
And it's
Yeah.
not about your looks, right? So it's like, okay, this person doesn't know how to take a picture horizontal to his face. He's doing it from beneath, so he looks like a monster. or like with bottom light. So he really looks like he wants to kill me. Or he doesn't have a head, which means we're probably never going to go out in public because you're embarrassed to show your face in here.
Or he doesn't have a head.
One.
Yeah.
Or doesn't have, maybe Don.
And I'm not going to exclude anyone because of disabilities.
Judgy.
But let's face it, as gay men, head is very important to all of us.
Indeed.
So I have a really, if the picture is the problem area, because there's two halves to this question, but I have a really easy tip for taking a good picture of yourself, especially if you only have a selfie instead of like a friend taking the picture for you, which I think is preferable. If you have some nice windows in your place, go stand in front of one of those windows when it's sunny out, so that you're facing out the window. Hold your phone up at least at eye level, like straight out, or maybe even above eye level, just a little bit, and take the selfie that way. And at worst, you will be well lit. You know, if everything else about the photo is terrible, at least you will be well lit in it.
That's great.
Brush your hair.
Yeah. I think one of the mistakes that I see a lot of people making is they don't think about who's responding, and they don't think about how they're coming across. Mm-hmm. For example, this very often people write to me and they say, like, I can't understand why I'm only getting, anonymous people who want a good fuck. And I said, well, it could have to do with the fact that all your pictures are of your anus.
Oh, Jesus.
And people don't realize that when you showcase body parts, you are welcoming people to relate to you as a series of body parts.
Yeah.
And
accurate.
For example, you can tell there are some people who do only face pics, like and they're very handsome and they're great face pics. But if you're on a Chub Chaser dating site, a chaser wants to see, well, what are you built like? What about the rest of you? Mm-hmm. And while your height and your weight may reflect some of that, people want to know, like, and people then think, oh, well, I'm not going to take a nude. I'm like, I didn't say a nude. Anything that you have on your Facebook page that includes more than your head is probably going to be just fine for a dating site too, is like a casual shot. And the more you show of your personality, the more you're going to bring people who want to date you as opposed to just fuck you. Will the people who fuck you won't show up too? Yes, they will. But it won't be only them. So things that show you in a social context, I'm not saying, put your sister and cousin in there, but you can blur their faces out, but things that show you at the beach, things that show you at the park, things that show you at the birthday party, where you're, what is your life like? What is it like to date you? What is it like to interact with you?
Yeah.
Things like that.
If you've put your room together in a way that you're like proud of, like if you like, I just finished putting my room together this year and I'm really, really proud of it. So I would take a picture with the things that I really like in the background of the picture. So you see me, but you also see the context of me. Like, what am I into? Or at least a vague idea of that. And it would then be accurate when you talk to me to make assumptions about those things because I chose to put them in my picture with me.
And that's a really great way to say it, Michael, the context of you, because that's really what we want to get. And then as far as the text is concerned, a lot of people are like, I don't know, I hate filling out these things, or email me for details. I would recommend putting something in there that people can either ask about or comment on that you would welcome. So, and that also goes for how to reply to somebody. If you're trying to get somebody's attention, hi is not the best attention getter. So give people something to say, like, oh, I live in Austin, or I lived in Austin, or, oh, I enjoy that bar on 6th Street, or give people something to have a conversation about. So you're not starting from hi, you're hot.
I would follow that up with, I think there's a such thing as writing too little, and I think there's a such thing as writing too much on a profile.
Yeah.
I don't, like, no matter how interesting you are, I'm not going to read your whole, 10-page biography. However, for me, if I were reading somebody's profile, I would look for, a few, 2 or 3 really specific things that you put on there. Here's a quote that I like, or here's my favorite book series and why, or something really specific because everyone can say I love movies, I love eating
I
out,
love Netflix
I love
and
this.
pizza and tacos.
Yeah, yes, okay, but everyone does. And that doesn't really help you when you're trying to narrow down what we can actually start a conversation over. I mean, maybe what kind of movies do you like? But again, you can ask anybody that question and they'll have an opinion on the answer. So I think having a couple specifics on there that, yeah, maybe you'll weed out a couple people who aren't into those things, but like you weren't going to get very far with them anyway, right?
Right, if
like,
they're really important to you. Because I think you're completely right, Michael. Saying I like movies is not nearly as incisive and informational as I like Harry Potter or I like the third Harry Potter.
Right.
I would say a big thing that I see a lot is like, do not contact me if like, or like, I know liars or cheat. Like a liar and cheater is not going to be like, oh, well, I mean, they said no liars and cheaters. So
damn, now my chance is gone.
Yeah, I'm not going to, I guess I won't mess with this person.
If I get a sense of negativity from your profile, I'm probably not going to respond. And
Absolutely.
negativity means, if you're like this, don't do this, or don't talk to me. That's negative right off the bat. And that's part of the thing that defines you then. Because that's what I do when I read these things. One, if you don't have any words in your profile, my assumption is that you're looking for sex because personality is not a factor to you, right? The second thing I do is I look at what you wrote and I use that to project what's important to you, right? So if you tell me where you're from, I think that you have some sort of roots where you're from. You're proud of the culture that you've inherited. If you tell me your job, or the job in your profile, I know your job's important to you, and all of those things that you offer up to me, that's code to me telling me what you are going to be interested in knowing too.
And I would just, to wrap this up, I guess, my advice, just to reiterate what I said about the bio, I would apply this to pictures too. Like, be picky about the ones that you put out there. Make sure that you have, like, I would rather see like 2 awesome photos of you as opposed to 30 mediocre or darkly lit ones where I can barely tell what the hell's going on.
Or 6 photographs of your belly.
Or exactly. So I would like to see, like, the ideal profile to me would be like, a short paragraph about yourself that includes really specific details of things that you're interested in and care a lot about. And like 3 excellent photos where the first one, your profile picture, is a really nice smiling headshot. And then another one that maybe shows a little bit more of yourself in context.
Definitely.
I think it's not too much to try and take on because a lot of people will be intimidated by like an overload. But like Don said, if there's nothing else there besides like a belly shot or 30 belly shots, it's also hard to wrap your head, or it's hard to latch onto that too.
Yeah, you're answering the question, what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to get?
Yeah.
Wow, this was a letter that we could have made a full episode out of, but
I think it may be.
Maybe we should.
I think we might need to move on to Lizzo Watch though, or we're going to run out of time.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
We've got all kinds of cool
Lizzo
stuff
Watch 2020. It's still 2020.
20.
I keep thinking that it's going to be not 2020 anymore. Anyway,
2019.
What?
No, I was just making a dumb joke.
I didn't.
I thought you were going to keep talking. Usually people talk over me when I make jokes, and then nobody has to like hear that it was a bad joke.
Ingenious strategy, Michael.
Oh,
I know. I just talk and entertain myself, and then.
So it's still 2020, which means things are still kind of terrible. Which includes the revelation that Lizzo was supposed to be in the Wet Ass Pussy video, but they were filming while she was out of town on her vacation, as we mentioned in an earlier episode.
Oh.
Which it just makes it so hard knowing what we could have had. There's so many things that were ripped away from us this year.
I mean, but
we're losing a sizable amount of the Taco Bell menu. Movies have been delayed. Lizzo was not in the Wet Ass Pussy music video. I mean, just
100 years from now, these will be the tragedies of 2020.
Yes, exactly. Well, you know what? We should be so lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other things that have not happened yet in 2020 that I'm still very worried about.
I realized we're going to have to record an episode before the election,
Don't say
not
it.
knowing
Don't
how it's going to go. And it's going to be the
wow.
day after the election that the episode comes out.
Well, we're not going to do the big fat gay election news coverage episode where we just live stream our reactions as things happen.
I mean, in all fairness, I don't think we'll know the day after.
For months. Months, we won't know. And then it'll be contested for months after that.
But we do know that Lizzo was not in the Wet Ass Pussy music video, which is a tragedy. But, God taketh away with one hand and deliver with another. Lizzo posted a video of her in this amazing top where it's like, it's fishnet, it's sheer, it's sequins.
Sparkly, yeah.
And it looks like she's topless, and she has a lot of fun kind of revealing that she's actually not topless. Since we got delayed, there actually was something else I wanted to include where Lizzo was at the beach twerking, and then I had to watch the video several times to find out that she's twerking, and then she starts freaking out and running away because I think a bee landed on her butt while she was twerking. And then it was still on her, and she's trying to get it off.
No, what you don't know is that she was trying to fight the bee off with her butt.
Yes, that's how bees do it.
Yes.
Well, we have an interesting topic picked out for today for our main subject, shall we?
This is so weird. It's so weird. A listener sent in a couple of these things, which we've sort of stitched together. It is a strange. It's a very twisty-turny article on CNN Travel that a listener sent in a couple of weeks ago, I think. The headline is restaurant chain in China apologizes for weighing diners to determine how much food they should eat.
Which is even the headline is not quite accurate, but okay.
Not really. Yeah. So I guess a couple things to note here. One, they were not forcing anyone to do that, to eat there. You could just walk in and eat there normally. It was sort of an opt-in thing. And two, it was supposedly related to reducing food waste. It's still kind of a misguided thing, but basically you're this size, therefore this is how much you need to eat, and you'll eat that much without wasting anything.
Well, this was what I couldn't understand. So the deal is, if you decide to get weighed, or if you volunteer your weight plus some other personal information, they will use this to make menu recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you're a man above a certain weight, they recommend the pork belly, but if you're a woman below a certain weight, they recommend the fish heads and the steak. And so I think it's about, and then they say this is all about controlling waste. And I'm trying to put that all together. And as near as I can tell, I think what they're thinking is that if you're a big person and you're going to eat a lot, we want to make sure that you eat the cheap stuff.
Wow.
I think that, because that's the only way, given the examples and given that they're not, the price doesn't change. There's no pricing here. This is just about menu recommendations.
Yeah.
You're still free to eat whatever you want. So that's the only way I've been able to put it together, unless somebody has a better idea.
I'm glad to hear they were recommending pork belly, though, because my assumption was Don, welcome to our restaurant. According to your weight, we recommend the large plate with a small sprig of parsley on it.
Right.
And it's $40
to drink air.
Well, I think the idea is if you're a big person and they anticipate that you're going to eat a lot, they don't want you eating 2 pounds of salmon. They want you eating 2 pounds of pork belly.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't appear to be as bad as you might think while reading the headline.
That said,
but we got better than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's just the starting point, everybody.
When I saw this, I was reminded of, at some point in Wisconsin many years ago, was in a restaurant that had a deal where kids paid what they weighed. And I sent this back to everyone, and Don identified the restaurant as
the Ground Round Children's Pay What You Weigh deal. I think when I was working there, it was every Tuesday night or something.
Oh, you worked
where literally
there.
You'd walk in, the hostess would welcome you, and then weigh your children in front of everyone, write their child's weight on a sticker, and put it on their chest.
So not just a ranking, but a weight.
It was literally a weight number, and they paid 1 penny per pound.
Oh.
And even for for a fat child, that's still big savings for the parents. But that fat child's walking around with, 160 on his collar or something.
Right.
Large, not little sticker, big ass, my name is sticker.
So I have to say, I went to the Ground Round still exists. And a restaurant that has deep fried Oreos on the menu has no business
assessing people's weight.
Everything they served was doused with barbecue sauce, like everything, and mayonnaise, and like it was not a health-oriented business whatsoever.
But it's your fault for being fat.
I don't even know. Like that.
They have a
that's what I'm
dessert
curious
sampler
about.
where it's all of the desserts.
Can I share a tangential story about working at the Ground Round that I love?
Oh,
Yes.
please do.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things they do at the Ground Round is during kids' night, when they pay what you weigh, they have a clown that goes around and quote unquote entertains the tables or terrifies the children, however you wanted to think of it.
Both.
One day our clown was a no-show, right?
Oh no.
So they decided they're going to ask the hostess on duty, who is this very smart, clever girl named Bethany. I remember her very
Bethany.
well, to be the clown because she had taken some theater classes. And then she was having trouble with the makeup. So I'm like, I do theater too. I'll go back and I'll help you put on the clown makeup. So you put white all over the face and then you draw black circles around the eyes, right? Then you put on the red lipstick and all that stuff. But we're putting it on in this back storage room that's not meant for it, where it's super hot. She's sweating like crazy.
Oh no.
And as soon as I'm done, I'm putting away the makeup so I don't see her put the backs of her hands on both of her eyebrows and wipe up to get rid of the sweat. So she stands up, she leaves, she walks out, and I'm walking behind her. The door opens to the dining room, and I see this table of small children turn, look at the door, and go, ah! She turns out, she looks at me. The black circles around the eyes have been streaked up into these demonic eyebrows that went straight up her forehead.
That's amazing.
I'm picturing Divine in one of the Pink Flamingos movies or something.
And the red makeup around the lips had melted just a little bit. So like a little trickle of like blood was going down the side of her mouth. They did not ask us to do that again.
I was really hoping you were going to end up the clown. That's where I thought this was going.
But yeah, I remember like I was a waiter there. And these poor kids would come in and weigh in. Like, let's face it, the majority of kids don't give a crap, but every heavy kid gave a crap. And like the tradition was to leave the stickers on till the end of the meal. Like I always whisper to the bigger kid, like, you can take that off, just stick it on the table. I'll get that later. And it was just not a fun experience.
And I love that the sticker and the writing is big enough so you can, the price of the kid from across the restaurant.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, so the thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around here is like, I can't imagine, well, I don't know, maybe I can, who knows? The world is full of terrible things, but this doesn't sound like something designed to shame fat people.
No.
I think it's just a marketing gimmick.
It was an incentive for parents.
It's like accidentally
because it's expensive to feed a kid at a lot of these restaurants. Like if you've got 3 kids and it's like $8 per child's item off the child's menu, it's $24 as opposed to maybe $1 per kid for what they eat, right?
Right.
We filled up, and I got to say that was another thing that sucked as a waiter working at that kind of restaurant. Parents still are going to tip 15% if you're lucky.
Oh, if you're lucky,
and a child is, any waiter will tell you, a child is twice the amount of work as an adult. Because, screaming, messes, throwing stuff, crying. And so that means I'm doing twice the work for a 15-cent tip. It was awful. It was a terrible idea. I did not mourn the Ground Round when they went out of business or declared bankruptcy. So now that there's only like 6 or 7 stores across the U.S., something like that.
Only the flagship stores remain, Don.
Yeah, it's like a bunch in Jersey and like North Dakota. It's sort of a weird breakdown.
They have scales in like glass cases out front. Remember the good times.
But I can't even imagine as a child. I remember my mom like super casually telling my weight to anyone who would listen when I was growing up. And I always like felt so betrayed by that. And like, because that was a thing that separated me from other people. And she was happily discussing it with everyone else. To have to go to a restaurant and wear that as a label at that sort of tender age where people's perceptions of you are everything.
So you said your mom would just like bring up to anyone who would listen your weight. How, like, in what context? Like, or I know that didn't need context necessarily, but like what was she saying to people? And like, how young were you when that happened?
I stopped telling her my weight after the age of like 12 or 13, I think, because I got tired of her just telling everyone. Out of context, like all of my family members, extended family members, always knew my exact weight. It was like she would send a newsletter out or something to everyone we were related to. But with like my friends, I mean, we'd be having dinner or something, and the subject of like, I don't know, like they'd compliment her food, for example, and like, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know I'm a great cook. Otherwise, he wouldn't be 137.5 pounds as of yesterday morning."
Yeah.
Oh man.
I remember it just coming up as non sequiturs pretty often. But I think it might have been my mom's version of that, like, shame people into losing weight thing.
Maybe, but I know that in other cultures, and your mother is from
she's from Guatemala.
Culture.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Well, in a lot of other cultures, and particularly Asia, there's a very different relationship than we have in America or in parts of Europe to fat. And while it's never good, I think one of the differences I've discovered is that in a lot of countries or cultures, fat is terrible, but not taboo. It's like saying someone's weight, or as, like there's this YouTuber who talks about, he's been in Japan and he's gained some weight, and all of his followers in Japan are saying like, "Oh, you're fat. Oh, you're so fat. Oh, look how much weight you get. Oh, you're so fat." Mm-hmm. And for a Westerner, that's like incredibly like, but in a lot of cultures, that's just a factual statement, and it's kind of on the level of talking about, oh, somebody has buck teeth, somebody has a really long beard, and they may not like it, but it's not taboo to mention it.
Now, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but part of my illustrious acting career back in the day, I was Mongol Warrior #1 in Charlie's Angels 2. Thank you very much.
Number 1.
That was you.
That was me. If you watch carefully, you can see the axe fly past my face as someone's killing someone else.
Nice.
But I was hired because of my weight. I'm a big Asian-looking dude. My mom's... for people who are confused, having listened to the show before, I'm adopted. So I am not Guatemalan myself, but my mom is Guatemalan. I'm half Native Hawaiian, so I can pass. But long story short, I got hired because of my weight, big Asian dude. But most of the Asian people they hired to fill this bar scene were Asian immigrants, right? That were very thin. Most of them didn't speak a lot of English at that point, but it was very authentic. And being one of the two big guys they had cast in those roles, and we were hanging out with all the other Asian dudes, we were points of interest for all of these guys. And it really wasn't uncommon. Every day, a couple of them would wander up to me and just put their hand on my stomach or on my chest and give a squeeze and go like, "Wow, you're so big. You're so big."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And out of context, that sounds horrible. But I will say in the moment, their attitude, their language, and their face as doing that wasn't condemning. It was just like, that's really interesting. Like,
I think the word you're looking
interesting body part of you.
I think the word you're looking for is wonder.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's not too far off.
Yeah.
I did not feel persecuted on that set. Although that said, I did feel uncomfortable. So,
well, and lots of fat people have, especially fat men, have anecdotes about going to Japan, sometimes China, and they are stopped on the street so that natives can take pictures of this enormous American with them.
Yeah. My ex before we were together, he told me a story about going to Japan, to Disneyland, and it would get stopped as often, more often than the characters in the park to get pictures taken with him. He said he felt like a movie star. He and she enjoyed it.
It's a bad sign when Minnie Mouse wants to hang out with you because she wants to get in more photos that day. That's a bad sign.
Well, they've seen Minnie Mouse. They've never seen a 400-pound, 6'3" American.
And it's like you said, it wasn't. I'm sure if it had felt mean-spirited, it would have come across that way, but it didn't. It didn't really. It just was sort of amazement and like, this is such a foreign thing.
There is a culture clash that goes on there where, like, my schema of the way people are treating me when they're pointing out my weight in America does not match what's going on when they do it when they're from Asia. And so, yes, it still makes me uncomfortable, but that's something I need to wrap my brain around when I'm going into those situations, especially when I'm going into their country. You know, like I feel like I have to take some ownership of that situation myself, but.
And it should be quickly said that it's not that they think fat is wonderful. I mean, Japan is fiercely anti-fat, but it doesn't have, but the reason it's not taboo because it's not seen as disgusting or evil. where it often is in Western culture.
Mm-hmm.
Is it seen as, because I know in certainly in the United States, it is equated 1-to-1 to moral failing, to sort of, is that the same? And is it like that there? Is that, is that part of it?
It's a different thing, because you have to kind of get into the Confucian mindset of, you're embarrassing your family. There's a harmony that's valued in Asia. There is the idea of, for example, something that is in this YouTuber's comments is you got so fat, you need to control yourself. And there's that idea of self-control of needing to, it's not about disgust, but it's about duty. It's really about duty.
Oh, that's an interesting distinction.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to here where it's your responsibility because vanity, really. Like,
well,
we
it's
don't
your
want to
responsibility.
you.
Well, yeah, because because fat here is disgusting and therefore unspeakable. That's why it's unspeakable, because it's that disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
But in other parts of the world, it's not good, but we can certainly talk about it, even if it is in negative terms. But it doesn't have that same hatred that you see it having in Western cultures.
The restaurants thing with them weighing you to decide what you should order, I feel like does kind of go into the dutiful thinking, because the CNN article also kind of mentions food shortages amidst COVID.
Yeah. A lot of,
and the thing I sent out today that I meant to send out earlier, but I linked to the YouTube video twice, was about the Metabo law in Japan, which requires men and women between the ages of 40 and 74 to have their waist circumference measured annually. And they have limits for the waistline. It's 33.5 inches for men and 35.4 inches for women.
Jesus.
And
it is
company's
Japan.
health
The
insurance,
average body size is a little different from America.
Well, what I find amazing about this is, number one, you are not personally penalized. Your company is penalized.
Yeah.
And if you no longer work for the company, they are still penalized. Or if you are part of some sort of, the point is some organization is penalized on your behalf, because again, there's that idea of group and harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that's really amazing, we've talked over and over again on the podcast about how ridiculous BMI is. This isn't even BMI. They don't care what your height is. It's only one measurement, your waist. So they're going into the assumption that everybody's the same height, therefore everybody's the same risk, and we just need to measure the waist. And the third ingredient, my favorite, is that of all the countries who are in which obesity is quote unquote a problem, Japan is the least of them. Japan has one of the lowest obesity rates in the world, and they're the one that since 2008 has had this law.
Man.
Now, like, the thing that scares me, I mean, a lot of things about that is just sort of unpleasant, but the thing that hit me right up front is if a company could be penalized for hiring me because of my waist size, that means I'm not going to get work, period. Like, doesn't matter if the company gets penalized, because I'm never going to get hired.
Yeah. And they said the fines for a large business, the fines could be as much as like $19-20 million, like equivalent for a U.S. company.
Well,
like it can
for
get
a really
substantial.
big company,
It is, but as far as the discrimination, it's important to see that the law only goes into effect once you're 40. So theoretically, if you were fat and 20, maybe they don't have to measure you. But yeah, maybe the company is thinking long term.
They got 10 years to slim you down.
Well, and that's the thing. These companies, they have weight loss incentives. Now, there were two studies done that are really interesting. One study was done longitudinally in 2011 that found that, yes, people who did go into the weight reduction company plans did lose weight. However, 3 years after, when the law was introduced, they saw absolutely no change in medical costs. I mean, they had no difference. So the law didn't seem to make a difference for public health costs, which was ostensibly why they introduced the measure in the first place.
Right, which goes back to we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but just that sticky tying in of health and weight, and oversimplification of that whole.
Well, I love this. This isn't even that. This is health equals circumference.
Well, and so something I find interesting about this, so they frame the whole the weight loss thing as it's not about obesity, it's about metabo, and they have
for metabolic
like music,
syndrome,
right?
Exercise classes with music and lyrics such as "Goodbye, metabolic. Don't wait till you get sick. No, no, no."
And again, they did this because obesity tested poorly because they didn't want to stigmatize people as fat or obese. So they changed the name to metabolic syndrome, which has a lot of elements to it, like blood pressure, cholesterol. They took all those away and they only went by not even BMI, but circumference. So they reduced metabolic syndrome to just waist measurement.
Well, something I read in there I thought was interesting that if I understand it correctly, someone correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but metabo didn't just mean metabolic syndrome. It was literally the excess weight you carried. And it was referring to it as a thing outside of you. Mm-hmm. You are not fat. You are carrying fat, right? So it made that thing you're carrying the problem, not you the problem.
Well, remember, they're trying to get away from fat entirely.
Right.
But they're just changing the name. You're right. They mean fat. But what they're saying is metabolic syndrome, and that's why you can have metabolic syndrome, but you aren't a metabo.
Okay.
That's the have versus are argument, is that they're fighting metabolic syndrome, but they're fighting metabolic syndrome as if it only had one dimension, your waistline.
Right. Interesting. It is a different mindset. If that could stick, I'm not sure what it would mean for us, but
it's lying. It's just plain lying.
What if you were like Kim Kardashian shaped, where you had a narrow waist, but right below that narrow waist, you had a big old butt?
But again, they think their population isn't that, and they're not entirely wrong. Japan is an incredibly homogenous population by design.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'm just curious, like, at what point do they admit that this is stupid? Like, this is a terrible way to measure. Like, it just seems so arbitrary, that one way of measuring.
Usually it gets fixed when someone in power gets fat.
Yeah, you just got to get Japan is not about diversity. They're kind of not about that at all.
But there's so many different Pokemon.
And all of them
more and
around. Do we have a tip?
Yes, we do. So going off of international metabolic syndrome issues. So I found this because I was doing some research for NAFA about international fat acceptance organizations, and actually found a list, which I thought I would share with all of our listeners, especially because I know that we have at least one listener in Sweden, and there is a Swedish Association for Overweight People, which a lot of the countries on the list I wouldn't expect. There's a Sweden, Germany, France, Australia.
Interesting.
There is. I'm trying to.
Are
find,
these like equivalent to NAFA in the U.S. or what's the?
It's hard
what kind
to
of
say because, like, the Swedish one is in Swedish, so I can't read it. But they seem to have similar goals. There is also just a international size acceptance organization. So I'll share all of these. Check them out. If you are an international listener and you can give us some more information on these, to like, maybe these actually aren't fat acceptance organizations, and I don't know.
But still, this list may be handy for our international listeners. Like,
yes,
just knowing that an organization like that exists in your area.
Or, maybe this will inspire someone out there to start one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like the French one, Allegro Fortissimo.
So the French group has an Italian name.
Yes.
Why not? So I did bring a bit.
Yay.
Did you?
It's not just kibble this week, finally.
Yeah. So when we were discussing pay what you weigh, right? Restaurants are not the only business that have tried this out in the past.
Oh.
So what company attracted international attention in 2013 when they adopted a pay what you weigh system?
It was,
A, Trevor, Angels Flight Zipline Adventures, based in Costa Rica.
Huh.
B, Samoan Air, based in Samoa. C, Mahalo Deep Sea Fishing Tours in the Cook Islands. Or D, Lucky Fang's Pedicabs in Hong Kong.
I believe it is the Samoan airline.
yes.
Okay,
Samoan
we got two
Air.
for Samoan Air. It's actually Samoan Air, not Samoan Airline.
Yes.
It's a
yes.
different
There's no
thing.
lines.
Michael, what you feeling?
I mean, the two of the other people guessing seem to immediately go to one answer.
Oh, just cave into
So-
this peer pressure. I see how it is.
All right, fine. I will go with. No, I want to be right this time. I'll go with Samoan Air.
Good for you. Samoan Air it is.
Yay!
So Samoan Air 2013 adopted this new policy where you basically paid for your weight plus the weight of your baggage, right?
How long did that last?
Well, that's going to be one of the questions, isn't it? So basically what it came down to was like for local flights in Pacific Islands, it was like 60 cents a pound total. For international flights, it came to around about $1 a pound on average, right? Samoan Air insisted that it was simply a good business sense that motivated their change, not a desire to shame fat people. Towards this end, they implemented an extra large row that had more comfortable seats for larger people. These seats were A, 14 inches wider than the usual 16 to 18 inches. B, set facing the inner aisle rather than forward, forcing people to stare at other passengers in the face for the duration of the flight.
That is very popular, yeah.
C, they were unable to pass international safety regulations because while the seat belts were made of standard materials, the seats themselves were made of a traditional Samoan fashion out of a wicker-like material. Or D.
Oh, there's a D.
Hammocks.
I thought you were just saying mats on the floor. Like,
we're just going to tie you down with like bungee cords.
In stowage. We're going to put you in cargo. Oh, man. I'm going to guess wider seats. And what, when you said 14 inches, I'm like, holy moly, that's a lot more. But then compared to 16 to 18, yeah, you'd need an extra 14 inches.
Mm-hmm.
That's my reasoning. So I'm going with on that one.
Yeah, I'm going with wider seats too, because that's the one that makes the most sense to me. I don't know if it's actually right.
I love the wicker chair idea. That's the one.
I'm also going to go with wider seats just because I imagine they probably just like took out an armrest and like.
You are correct. Wicker seats. 14 inches wider than their normal size seats. Now, is an interesting point. When you talked about the sort of the couch situation on some flights,
Air New Zealand, yeah,
yes.
Air New Zealand. Apparently Samoan Air was the first one to implement that. They did have sort of love seat style seating on some flights later on. It's important to notice that like Samoan Air was actually a small airplane operation. They weren't doing Airbuses or any of that sort of thing. And their main destination was American Samoa, which is one of the fattest places on earth. So they were trying to figure out some new things. 1 year after it implemented the program, Samoan Air reviewed its success. Right? Their CEO, Chris Langton, declared, A, it was a big fat success. B, it was a failure that weighed on their minds. C, they had to chew the fat with the International Flight Council to see if they could legally continue it.
Oh, God.
Or D, none of the above. He attempted to deny that the company ever implemented the strategy.
Oh.
Huh.
I like D. It smacks of 2020.
I'm going to say chewing the fat. They still had to chew the fat on
with the International Flight Council.
Oh, you do not believe that's true. You just want to say it.
Yeah.
Dan, what are you feeling? Are you feeling none of the above?
I think D is a strong contender. Yeah, I'm going with D.
D. And Trevor.
I'm going to be different, and I'm going to go for B. Weighing
Which one is
on
that?
their mind. The weighing on their
It was a
minds.
failure that weighed on their minds. Okay, so we got one for B, one for C, one for D, and the correct answer is A. It was declared a big fat success, and that's a quote from the news article. So, to close things out, what ultimately was the fate of Samoan Air?
Ooh.
A. After continued growth over the next 5 years, they were the most profitable local airline operating the Pacific Islands in 2018. B. They mysteriously closed with no explanation in 2015 when their website and Facebook pages went blank. C. They were bought out by Hong Kong Airlines in 2019, who are looking into implementing their payment strategies for all domestic travel by 2022. Or D. The owner lost the airlines as part of a rugby bet in 2016, and its new owner discontinued the practice.
I was really hoping for lost it in a sumo match, but never mind.
I'm going to go with C, bought out by
Hong Kong Airlines. You want to
Airline.
copycat them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why, but as absurd as it sounds, the idea that it just winked out of existence suddenly, I don't know.
You think
I
that-
like that?
You think Samoan Air succumbed to the Thanos snap?
I think it did.
Okay.
No, more like the Amelia Earhart. Like they just sort of flew off into the distance and never came back.
They're in the Samoa Triangle, aren't they?
And Trevor.
I'm going to go with they just disappeared because that happened to a cookie manufacturer that I enjoy. Just
Oh, yes.
during, like at the start of the pandemic, they just completely vanished from the internet. Every trace of them.
Interesting.
Trevor told me he wouldn't let me back in the house until I bought more, and I stayed a week out there.
All right. So we got 2 for the mysterious Thanos snap disappearance, and we have 1 for bought out by Hong Kong Airlines. And the correct answer is they mysteriously closed with no explanation
no.
in 2015 when their website and Facebook pages went blank.
What happened?
I like when a company
Oh, it was a
ghosts.
big fat success. Didn't you hear?
Exactly. I am not sure. I spent a couple hours researching it today, and I could not find any trace,
That's
except for
amazing.
one person who claimed that they bought a ticket on a Samoan Air flight in 2018, and that they were informed that the flight was delayed for 48 hours. They bought a ticket on another airlines after being assured by Samoan Air that they would have a proof of the cancellation and all that stuff.
Oh my God.
And then they were never spoken to again by Samoan Air, who never responded. Doesn't this sound like a ghost story?
it
Like,
does.
yeah.
I bought a ticket from
Samoan.
this mysterious airline counter at a corner of the terminal I'd never seen before.
At the other, when I was talking to the check-in clerk at the other airline, they said, Samoan Air? Why, Samoan Air hasn't been around these parts in nearly 25 years. So I have a question. So if
Just one.
what is the fattest place on earth?
American Samoa.
Real? Is this
Yeah.
as of
I actually had to look it up because of this. But Samoa, American Samoa at that point, they were thinking they had about an 80% obesity.
You know, if it's the fattest place on earth, I expect there to be rides.
okay? I
It
love
depends
this
if you buy a
article.
drink for the right person. That's all I'm saying.
This article, how paradise became the fattest place in the world, which is
I read that.
it makes
Speaking as a chubby chaser, the fattest place in the world is always paradise for me.
So there you go. The history of American Samoa. Don't say the Big Fat Gay Podcast never taught you something.
Yeah. I feel like we should go there and do a special vacation episode in American Samoa.
that's going to be
You
a
know.
very pricey flight. Well, gentle listeners, it's that time again for me to rush through all of this. We're on Twitter and Instagram as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Check out all of the resources we mentioned at www.bigfatgaypod.com. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, maybe. I never can remember. Yeah, it's a lovely time. Maybe you're listening on the way to your airport to catch a flight on Samoa Air,
Ooh.
and
Ooh.
you notice a crunching sound coming from your back seat, and you look, and it's Don. Why not? And he says,
Look out! In Michael's voice.
"Yeah."
I put my thumb on your scale when you bought your airplane ticket.